All right, we're going to get started on this series by talking about the musical alphabet and also learning our way around the keyboard. So we have letter names that we use to identify the notes on the piano. And basically, for music notation, we just use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, like this. And then after we run out of notes, we just continue through that same pattern again. So after G, the next note would be A. And the way that it works is on a piano, the alphabet moves to the right. So if I start on an A and I go forward in the alphabet, I'm moving to the right on the keyboard. And if I'm going backwards in the alphabet, I would move down to the left. And on the staff, it goes similarly upwards and down. So if I play the note A on a piano in the treble clef, and I were to go to the note B on the treble clef, it would be up the staff to the very next line. So we can use the spaces and the lines. And if we're going up, we're going forward in the alphabet. If we're going down, we're going backwards in the alphabet. So we are starting here with the first letter A, and on a piano that's going to be found right here. But what I'd like to do is actually shift where we start from, because it's going to put us in a good position to play our first scale. So let's start actually not on A, but on the note C. And if I start on a C, I want you to notice that it is located just to the left of the 2 black notes on the keyboard. So there's a pattern of 2 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 2 and 3. And everywhere that you find the 2 black notes, immediately to the left of those will always be the note C. So that note's a C, C. So all those notes are C's. So if you can start to learn that pattern of the black keys on the piano and look for C, that's a great place to start. There's one in particular that's important because it's the C that's pretty much in the middle of the keyboard. Or if you're looking at a staff with a treble and a bass clef, there's a note that goes in between the two, which we also call middle C. So on the piano, middle C is here, and on the staff, it's in between the treble and the bass clef. Okay, so if we start from the note C and we go forward in the alphabet, it sounds and looks like this. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So I started over again at A. And that probably sounds pretty familiar. That's a scale that we're going to learn a little bit later. And you can start that from any place on the keyboard. I'm starting at middle C, but if we were to go down to the C below middle C, it would be 8 notes down, right? We can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this C, we would say, is the distance of an octave below middle C. And you can kind of hear that they sound the same. It's just that this one is lower, and that interval, which is 8 notes apart, we call an octave. All right, so I've pretty much showed you how to find the white notes on a piano. You can look for the C just to the left of the 2 black notes, and then you can use the musical alphabet to go either forwards or backwards and figure out what the other notes are. Of course, in time, hopefully you'll figure them out without using the alphabet, just by feel and by sight. But we might be asking, well, what about the black notes then? What do we call those notes? Okay, well, let's start on that note C. And I'm going to travel up or to the right the smallest distance that we can travel on a keyboard. In this case, it's called a half step, from here to here. And because I'm going up or raising the C, we're going to call this note a C sharp. So the sharp notes are notes that have been raised, C to C sharp. But we could also start on the note D, and we could travel down or get lower by a half step as well. So if we start on a D and we go to this note, we would call it D flat. All right. So there's a C. I can raise it up a half step and call it a C sharp. Or I can start on a D and I can lower it one half step, the flat sign, and that D becomes a D flat. So a lot of these notes then are going to have two names, C sharp or D flat. This could be D sharp or it could be E flat, and so on. You get the idea. Now where it gets a little bit interesting is when you go between this note and this note. So I told you before that the smallest distance we can travel is a half step. And that's true going from C to C sharp or from C sharp to D. When we go from E to F, it's also a half step. So the distance between E and F on a keyboard is that same distance of a half step. So without getting too crazy with the sharps and the flats, for right now, let's only worry about the black notes, but at some point in the future, you're going to find out that this can be called an E sharp, and this can be called an F flat. It's kind of weird, but it's true. All right, so now that we've figured out what the flats and sharps are, and we know how to travel a half step, we want to see what would happen if we started here on C. We go up a half step, up another half step. So the distance from C to D now is called a whole step. And now if we start on the note C and we make our way up to the next C, playing only the white notes on a piano, we can see a pattern. Whole step, half, whole, 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 half. On the whiteboard, it looks kind of like this. So I'm traveling from a middle C, and I'm using every line and space on the staff. There's no flats or sharps. It represents all the white keys on the piano. And when we play that pattern of whole steps and half steps, it gives us something that's called a major scale. We'll be learning more about that later on, but hopefully you have at least an idea now of how to find your way around the keyboard and what we call the notes, both the white notes and the black notes on the piano.